What makes a good mother? Well, as a male with no kids, I believe I am the person to answer that question. And to do that, I'm going to be analyzing Bryan Cranston's controversial TV wife. No, not that one. That one. Lois Wilkerson from Malcolm in the Middle. Yeah, if you didn't know, the family's last name is Wilkerson, if the pilot episode is to be believed. But you know, Wilkerson, it doesn't quite feel right, so I'm just gonna call them the Malcolms. As I often do, I was recently looking up online discussions about my favorite TV shows to find dookie-brained opinions that make me mad, and I was surprised to discover that when it comes to Malcolm in the Middle, Mama Malcolm is quite the divisive figure. Some people think she's a good mother just doing her best, and some people think she's a despicable failure of a parent. In fact, discussions about her can get so heated that I debated whether to even make this video, so let me just quickly start off by saying, in a discussion about parenting, people are understandably going to be bringing a lot of their own baggage and personal experiences to the table, but let's just try to remember that Malcolm in the Middle is a scripted show with fake characters, and is also a comedy. Things are exaggerated, and the family has to be dysfunctional for the sake of entertainment. I mean, I don't want to watch a family that's well-adjusted and gets along. I get enough of that in my own life. Also, I'm choosing to focus on Lois exclusively here and not Hal, because I think Lois's effectiveness as a parent is more nuanced. As funny and lovable as he is as a sitcom character, Hal is, in my humble, correct opinion, a more obviously bad parent.
Hal, you're a middle-aged man. You can't run away from home.
So the most prominent thing about Lois that seems to rub people the wrong way is her loud, aggressive parenting style.
I don't want to tell you this is a new low, because every time I do, you take it as a personal challenge!
She's frequently yelling and angry in a way that her haters say is grating and naggy.
We now return to Malcolm in the Middle.
And who left the wet towel on the bed? Swear to God, sometimes I feel like just going on strike. What do you think about that, huh?
Kids, we're free. We're finally free.
A lot of the complaints I see about Lois don't even criticize her parenting skills, they just say that she's exhausting to watch. And on some level I agree, even if she's justifiably upset, it is grating listening to someone who's constantly yelling and complaining. However, just because someone's parenting style is grating doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad. Now, I think it's important to consider how the show tries to portray Lois. Now, I might be wrong. I mean, there's a first time for everything. But I think the show's intention is to make Lois a character who is technically right in most cases. She's framed as the moral compass of the family. I get the impression that the writers of the show agree with most of the things that Lois says and does, like she's supposed to be this beacon of righteousness, most of the time. She is law and order in a world of chaos. She is principled and conscientious to a fault.
The mother I know has spent her entire life ranting about always doing the right thing, no matter what the cost, no matter how unpopular it is.
Not only is she morally righteous, but also her perception of the world is usually accurate. There was a whole episode about this where she was being too stubborn to admit that she was wrong about a traffic incident, even when there seemed to be objective proof that she was wrong.
It's wrong.
What?
The tape is wrong.
Dad!
Only to reveal at the end of the episode that she had in fact been right the entire time.
Lois was right all along. This completely exonerates her. Isn't this great?
Because that's one of Lois's defining character traits. She perceives reality with objectivity. Most of the time.
This one's name is Sam Gundlebumps. He grew up on a farm where he was friends with a turkey and a duck.
In that same episode, she states a fundamental part of her worldview this way.
Being right is everything.
Now, you could interpret that as the ravings of a narcissist who can never admit when she's wrong, but I don't think she's talking about being right in the sense of winning arguments. I think what she's expressing here is that the most important thing is having the objectively correct information and acting accordingly, which is a noble pursuit. But even if Lois is ethically and empirically in the right, is her aggressive authoritarian parenting style justified? Kids do need discipline, it's an important part of parenting, but is Lois too extreme of a disciplinarian? While the show portrays Lois's aggressive parenting style as a response to her kids rather than just her being a tyrant. She rules with an iron fist because her kids are disrespectful and mischievous. That's one of the driving forces of the show, that the kids get into a lot of trouble. In one episode, Dewey starts being super well behaved, and in return, Lois starts treating him nicely.
Have a nice day, honey.
In fact, he even explicitly spells it out for Malcolm and Reese.
Why's she being so nice to you?
Mom doesn't yell and scream at us because it's the only way she knows how to talk. She does it because we do stuff that's bad. And if you don't do anything, she doesn't get mad at you.
When the kids are respectful and well behaved, Lois mellows out. Malcolm gets the same nice mom treatment in the episode Malcolm holds his tongue when he decides that he's going to stop talking back to her.
How many times do I have to tell you to hang up your wet towel after you've used it?
Sorry.
And I don't want to... What did you say?
I'm sorry.
Yes. Well, I can see you boys are studying, so maybe this isn't the best time to deal with this. Do you want any sodas or anything? Well, you're looking a little tired. Why don't you let me finish up?
All right.
We also learn in a flashback that when Lois was a first-time mother, she started off with a more gentle parenting style.
I asked him very nicely not to play with it, but he just wouldn't listen.
What he needs is a little discipline. You can't keep coddling him like this.
The only reason she stopped doing that was because it wasn't working, so she switched to a more aggressive approach.
I will do whatever I have to take care of you and keep you safe and happy and alive. That is how much I love you.
And to be fair, if you had to deal with kids like this, you would occasionally lose your cool too. We do see other adults besides Lois flipping their lids when they have to interact with the Malcolms. Hal occasionally loses it.
Hey! Stop! No, we are at 0 tolerance now. Tolerance to the 0 degree.
The woman who picks up Dewey in her car and is driven insane by him.
If you want an answer to a question, you have to first
What does
wait.
this do?
You know what? I need to buy a pack of cigarettes for the first time in 20 years.
In one episode, it's revealed that the whole neighborhood has a big street party every year when the Malcolms go on vacation because the entire family is hated by the rest of the neighborhood.
The whole neighborhood hates us so much that they throw a giant celebration just because we're gone.
And also, since Hal is so timid and weak-willed, Lois has to step up and do the heavy lifting of parenting to compensate. So I do think being a stern disciplinarian makes sense given the kids that she's dealing with, but also she does go overboard sometimes. In the episode Evacuation, she grounds Malcolm for 2 weeks after he comes home an hour and a half later than he said he would because he was doing homework at Stevie's. An overly harsh punishment, if you ask me. And then when the whole town ends up in the school due to an emergency, she still insists on him being grounded. And also, let's be real, Lois, like all parents, sometimes treats her kids aggressively just because she's frustrated in the moment and not because she's trying to be a good parent. I mean, parents don't have the mental bandwidth to make every single interaction with their kids a strategic move in a grand parenting strategy. Sometimes all you can say is, "How many times have I told you, stop putting my earrings in the toaster?" But you have to consider that being around constant negative energy like this can have a negative impact on a child's mental health. There's a balance to strike with how much angry energy you put out. It's exhausting being around someone who flips out over every little transgression. But even if her authoritarian parenting style is a response to her kids, the question is it working? I wish I had a big beard I could stroke as I'm thinking. You know what? Hold on. You know, a lot of fans of the show characterize the boys as a bunch of absolutely horrible demon children, and this may be an unpopular opinion, but I don't think that's really accurate. Now, let me preface this by saying it's been a long time since I've rewatched the entire show, and admittedly, I do have a bad memory. I mean, I don't even remember what I had for breakfast today. Or second breakfast. Or 11's. In fact, I don't remember who I am, why I'm here, or what I'm doing right now. And I'm scared. But from what I do remember, it's really Reese and young Francis who are the demon children of the family. Malcolm and Dewey are actually pretty decent human beings who often try to do right by others. They're not miscreants. The level of mischief they get into is fairly typical for kids their ages. The most immoral thing I can remember them doing is when they stole items and money from a church charity. But in that episode, they're young kids. Malcolm is 13 and Dewey is 8. Plus, they eventually have the compunction to realize that what they're doing is wrong and they confess. In Francis's case, even though he started out as a problem child, when he eventually moved to the Dude Ranch, he started developing into a responsible, upstanding adult. Reese is the only kid who seems truly immune to parental intervention, and that might be because he's a literal sociopath.
How would you feel if you were that poor woman whose quiche you salted?
Fat?
Reese, do you know what empathy is?
No.
He has no more sense of right and wrong than a tree frog.
So all things considered, I think the kids actually turned out decently well, with the major exception of Reese. And if that's true, is Lois's draconian parenting style to thank for that? Ow. Well, that depends on how much you believe that a child's behavior is the result of their parents. I think our society has a habit of ascribing too much of someone's behavior to their parents. Especially when it comes to bad behavior, people are very quick to blame the parents. Oh, if only that Jeffrey Dahmer had had better parents, then he would have been a normal person. I mean, parenting isn't literally the only thing that determines the outcome of someone's life. There's other variables at play. Kids are individuals. They're not all gonna turn out the same way, even in the same household. Sometimes two kids from the same family turn out to be complete opposites of each other. But still, I think it's fair to say that while parenting isn't the only thing that shapes a person, it might be the most important thing. So you could certainly make the case that the Malcolm boys turning out as relatively well as they did is thanks to Lois. But even if we concede that Lois is an effective disciplinarian, that's still only one part of being a good parent. Discipline is important, but kids also need to feel loved, supported, and cared for. And I think that's where Lois doesn't stack up quite as well. It's clear that Lois cares for her kids. She cooks, cleans, does their laundry, and works an almost full-time job, choosing to work part-time so that she can keep her schedule flexible enough to be more available for her kids. She's occasionally more demonstrative about it, like helping Dewey when he hits his head.
I hit my head!
Let me have a look. Okay, Dewey, everything's gonna be fine. Yeah, for Dr. Flannery, my son Dewey got a bad bump on his head.
Standing up for Reese when she finds out that his teacher is out to get him.
You let him cheat for you? You gave something he wrote an F? Oh, I can't wait to see you expelled or disbarred or whatever it is they do to creepy little men who abuse their power.
Having a vulnerable heart-to-heart with Malcolm in the car to give him relationship advice.
Can I ask you something else?
Sure.
Sometimes when I'm with Nikki, I have this feeling that she wants to be doing something else, but I don't know what it is.
Then I try to guess.
Oh, that's never good.
Yeah.
Despite how adversarial their dynamic can be, I think the kids understand that Lois is there for them at the end of the day. But I wouldn't say she's a particularly sweet mother. Her heartwarming moments are pretty few and far between. She's so entrenched in her tough love mode of parenting that she forgets the more nurturing side of parenting. I don't think the boys view her as a source of comfort as much as they fear her wrath. And beyond that, Lois has had some pretty bad moments with her kids individually. The way she treats Malcolm, for example, can be questionable. She sometimes scolds Malcolm with the same intensity that she does Reese, even though Malcolm isn't nearly as bad as Reese.
What the hell are you laughing at? You think wasting electricity is funny?
Isn't it interesting that you treat your kids like criminals?
In the evacuation episode, she went overboard with his punishment and publicly humiliated him.
Everyone, this is my son. He's being punished. No one should talk to him.
A recurring theme in the show is her disrespect for Malcolm's autonomy. She forces him to tutor Reese.
Why do I have to tutor him?
Because God gave you a giant brain. Blame him.
She forces him to get a job at the Lucky Aid.
Just let me find my own job.
Malcolm, it's already done. I had to call in a lot of favors with Mr. Young for you. You are not going to make me look bad by not honoring your commitments.
How is it my commitment?
Because I'm your mother and you're doing it. That's final.
She controls everything he does when he visits college.
You walked me to my dorm room, you chose my lunch, you tucked in my shirt in the middle of orientation.
And in the finale, we learn that Lois and Hal have been planning for Malcolm to become the future president of the United States without telling him.
The life you're supposed to have is you go to Harvard, and then you become governor of a mid-sized state, and then you become president.
What if I don't want to be president?
It's too late for that. You're gonna do it.
Rather than giving him the agency to pursue his dreams and desires and supporting those, they plotted behind his back to engineer his life toward what they wanted. And one of the worst things she ever did, one of the few times she did something unequivocally wrong, was when she stole $10,000 from Malcolm to buy a dollhouse for herself.
I've done something very bad.
You spent $10,000 on a stupid dollhouse?
And then with Dewey, one of the running gags was that they were neglectful towards him and often forgot about him.
Why would we have so many leftovers?
They told him to stand in the corner for a punishment and then forgot he was there until the next morning.
I have this terrible feeling we've forgotten something. Oh boy.
They forgot to come to his recital.
Where is Dewey?
And Lois unapologetically admitted to Dewey that she was sabotaging his chances at a piano competition.
You don't like watching me be successful because it reminds you that you never did anything with your life.
So what?
Huh?
You think you're the first kid in the world whose parents ever sabotaged him? Please, Dewey, parents undermine their children all the time.
She had interfered in her kids' lives before, but this is the only time I remember her being genuinely malicious about it. Dewey really doesn't deserve all that, considering he's a pretty decent kid. Then we have Francis. Lois and Hal sent Francis to military school, which is debatable whether that was justified or not. Sending your kid away from his family to be in military school is extreme, but Francis was an extreme problem child. Lois is also cold and mean to Francis's wife Piyama, which is another one of the few unequivocally wrong things that she did. In fact, I think the writers added this dynamic to the show to make Lois more flawed so that she wasn't Miss Always Right. But also, that's only tangentially related to her momly aptitude. The way a mother treats her kid's significant other matters, of course, but it's kind of parenting adjacent. However, there is a moment with Francis that's arguably the biggest indictment of Lois's mothering, and that's when she flat out admits to him that she wasn't a good enough mother to him.
I wasn't a good enough mother to you, and I'm sorry. I got overwhelmed and I took things out on you that weren't your fault. They were my fault. You deserved a mother who was more patient and more caring, and it breaks my heart that you didn't get that mother.
Thank you.
So if he thinks she wasn't a good enough mother to him, and she thinks she wasn't a good enough mother to him, I think it's fair to conclude that she failed him as a mother, at least in some significant ways. And if you're a bad mom to one of your kids, but a good mom to the others, what's your overall mom score? Well, one way you could look at it is that if you have 5 kids and you're a good mother to 4 out of 5 of them, then you're an 80% good mother. That's a B grade. But I don't think it's that cut and dry. I mean, if you had 5 kids and you were a great parent to 4 of them, but you intentionally killed the 5th one, I don't think anyone would be saying that you're a great great parent. You know, people aren't gonna be like, you know, I know she fed that one kid to a pack of coyotes, but you gotta admit, she took good care of those other kids. Also, I feel like it's worth noting that 3 of the worst things Lois ever did, stealing money from Malcolm, sabotaging Dewey's recital, and secretly plotting Malcolm's life trajectory, they all happened in the final season of the show, when I think like most shows that have been on for a long time, the writers were straining for new material and bending character personalities to the point that Lois was kind of becoming a different character, and it almost makes me want to disregard that final season. The Lois haters like to dismiss her as a narcissistic control freak who is just out to get her kids, but moments like that apology to Francis show that she actually does self-reflect and puts thought into her parenting decisions, and she's capable of feeling regret about how she treats her kids.
I need to talk to you. I've been a terrible mother.
In one episode, she wrestles with herself over whether she's being too strict on Dewey.
Well, I suppose you've suffered enough. Wait a minute. You get right back into bed, mister. No, hold on. I'm being ridiculous. Go watch TV. Wait, not so fast. Ugh, I'm being ridiculous.
And Lois and Hal even seek professional counseling at one point to get parenting advice. So Lois does care about being a good mom. Her intentions are good, but intentions only go so far. I mean, if you intend to be a good chef, but you serve a chicken parmesan dish that has chicken feathers and a beak in it, then you're not a good chef. And just to paint a fuller picture of why Lois acts the way she does, we should remember that she was raised by bad parents, so she didn't have healthy role models growing up. While that doesn't let her off the hook, I do think she deserves a bit of compassion for pushing against the negative influences of a toxic upbringing. So looking at it all together, I personally feel like Lois was a decent mother given what she was dealing with. She had some bad moments for sure, but you can't just focus on the bad. Anyone could look like a bad person if you saw a highlight reel of their worst moments. The family probably would have benefited from a more individualized parenting approach for each kid, but that's easier said than done, I'm sure. I personally wouldn't want a mother like Lois, but I also didn't need a mother like Lois. I wasn't a rascally kid. Lois certainly isn't the best mom, but maybe she was the best mom for those 5 boys. Francis, Reese, Malcolm, Dewey, and Bizarro Dewey. Guys, if you want to watch me overanalyze something else, check out this video. And to all you moms out there, keep on mommin', baby.